I think atheists in today's society have been the champions for reason and science in the face of creeping superstition and irrationality in the world.
Creeping superstition. All right, let me just ask you some yes or no questions, because atheists are very good at giving yes or no answers, I've been told. Are Christians stupid?
No, I don't think all Christians are stupid.
Okay.
I mean, there
How
might
many
be some
Christians are
stupid beliefs
stupid?
there. How many?
Yeah, most?
No, I'm not calling Christians stupid. I mean, atheists, you know, we don't want to ban religion. I think we believe in the principle of secularism, which is fairness in terms of the state being neutral in matters of religion. Everyone has the right to believe whatever they want. They just don't have the right to impose those beliefs onto other people.
All right. But do you think Christians impose, and I'm just picking on Christians, let's call them Buddhists for a moment. Do you think Buddhists are imposing their beliefs on non-Buddhists? Are they imposing their beliefs on people like yourself, atheists?
Well, look, personally, Buddhists, I think, are quite mild. I think what we are concerned about is, say, groups like the Australian Christian Lobby having an undue influence on political discourse in this country.
Let's go back to the Christians, because you've got a bit of a chip on your shoulder with Christians, haven't you? Because you think that they do hold some kind of a privileged position, so you're a bit anti your Christians.
Well, I mean, in Australia, 60% of people mark some form of Christianity in the census, so it is the majority belief, but it is a multicultural, multi-faith society that we live in. But I think that, you know, non-belief is the fastest growing demographic when it comes to the question of religion in the census, and it's about time that there was an event where we can be proud of that and embrace it.
Who do you most dislike? Would it be the agnostics, who are sort of slightly fence-sitters?
Well, you know, I'd probably even consider myself an agnostic atheist. I think if, you know, if there was enough evidence for the existence of God, then maybe I would believe in it.
What's the king hit for people who are watching now thinking that you're just a bunch of disbelieving freaks?
Well, the thing is, we don't really have a hard-hitting piece of knowledge. It's really science is the only process that we have to figure out the reality of the world that we live in. And so without evidence, I don't think we can really hold these particular beliefs, let alone, you know, base important decisions when it comes to tackling the world's problems. We need to be basing that on evidence and reason.
Would there be suicide bombings if the Islamic community had their own air force and tanks? I don't think so. They would be invoking the military machines that the rest of the West has available to itself.
And they say so quite specifically.
Okay.
No, I would say I wouldn't be quite that sanguine. There wouldn't be suicide bombings, perhaps, but this notion of martyrdom, either you believe in martyrdom as a genuine metaphysical principle or you don't. If you do, it has certain behavioral and logical consequences. Get the U.S. out of this. Look at the war between Iran and Iraq. The Iranian mothers were sending their teenage sons out to clear minefields with their lives, thinking they were going to get to paradise and get the whole family in after them. We were not, this was not Iran against the great Satan. This was not an expression of their entanglement with Israel. This was, I mean, how do you get a mother to celebrate the suicidal atrocities of her children? She has to believe something. Now, more often than not, you know, I'm with Weinberg, who thinks she has to believe something religious. Now, you can get me some kind of Marxist ideology hammered into her head that may get her to feel consoled by that behavior, but, you know, martyrdom is good enough, and martyrdom is very well subscribed. And so whether they're willing to blow up nukes or just not be, you know, deterred in a mutually assured destructive sort of way, the way the Soviet Union was. That's really what I'm worried about. I'm worried about a world in which we wake up and we see the psychological equivalents of the 19 hijackers armed with long-range nuclear weapons. And then we have to think, well, are these really rational actors? I mean, are they as pragmatic as Scott says? Or are these guys really willing to hit the wall at 400 miles an hour? I think they're telling us they're willing to hit the wall.
In his comment, one of the few he's made, on the institutionalization of rape and torture and maltreatment of children in Catholic institutions, he has said it's a very severe crisis which involves us, he said, in the following: in the need for applying to these victims the most loving pastoral care. Well, I'm sorry. They've already had that. The rape and torture of children is not something to be relativized. It's not something to be excused as a few bad priests. It's the crime that cries out for punishment. For condemning my friend Stephen Fry for his nature. For saying you couldn't be a member of our church. You're born in sin. He's not being condemned for what he does, he's being condemned for what he is. You're a child made in the image of God. Oh no, you're not. You're a faggot. And you can't join your church and you can't go to heaven. This is disgraceful. It's inhuman. It's obscene. And it comes from a clutch of hysterical, sinister virgins who've already betrayed their charge in the children of their own church.
Do you feel your beliefs are superior to other faiths? We could probably spend an hour on this, so we're going to try to keep it short. I know Sean has something to say about this.
Yes. I do believe that the things I believe to be true are more likely to be true than the things I believe not to be true. In fact, I suspect everybody believes that. It is weird that atheists get this accusation that you think what you believe is true. How can you do that? And I think that if people didn't believe what they thought was true, they would have different sets of beliefs. So I think that the beliefs I have, I try to get to by combinations of reason and evidence, and I think that everyone should do that. And the great thing about scientifically based beliefs is you're willing to update them if better evidence or better logic comes along. So.
All of this could be part of a plan. There is no way an atheist can prove it's not. But it's some plan, isn't it? With mass destruction, pitiless extermination, annihilation going on all the time, and all of this set in motion on a scale that's absolutely beyond our imagination, in order that the Pope can tell people not to jerk off.
Rabbi, stupid. Right. Now, I think here we've reached actually childish to be. We've reached an area of agreement.
My cab driver says his theory was that it was because the church lost its moral authority. Series of scandals and hypocrisy and repressiveness and pageantry over true devotion had led the Irish people. It's not because Darwin showed how species evolved or because Stephen Hawking calculated the wave function of the universe. That's not what people want from religion. And when the moral authority goes away, it's going to be up to science and naturalistic worldview to develop a model, an understanding, a set of answers for how we should live our lives in this world. And we haven't done that yet. The good thing about a debate like this is that we're attacking tough questions. The bad thing is it's delaying us from attacking the even more important questions of how to live productive human lives in a world governed by the laws of physics. And I need to put it in words that are better than mine. So there's a quote from Anne Druyan, Carl Sagan's wife, that was floating around Facebook. After Carl Sagan died, Anne was asked, did he have a deathbed conversion? Did he start believing in an afterlife because he was close to death? And she says, Carl faced his death with unflagging courage and never sought refuge in illusions. The tragedy was that we knew we would never see each other again. I don't expect to be reunited with Carl. But the great thing is that when we were together for nearly 20 years, we lived with a vivid appreciation of how brief and precious life is. The way he treated me and the way I treated him, the way we took care of each other and our family while he lived, that is so much more important than the idea I will see him someday. I don't ever think I will see Carl again, but I saw him. We saw each other. We found each other in the cosmos, and that was wonderful.
You're pointing out the role of bias in science. You're saying that you can pick out individual scientists or individual theories or individual moments in science where scientists were just flat wrong, and they were wrong based on their own biases. And that is a totally legitimate thing to do. It is a totally scientific thing to do. I mean, your bias in science is bad science. Bias in religion is faith, it's doctrine, it's redeeming, it's holy. I mean, you don't have the same corrective mechanism in religion. The reason why neuroscientists are queuing up to meet with the Dalai Lama and not with the Pope is that there is a different discursive tradition within Buddhism than within Christianity and certainly within Islam. And the Tibetan Buddhism is, in its totality, being practiced as a religion by most Tibetan Buddhists in this world. But the Dalai Lama is a very sophisticated connoisseur of modernity, and he's interested in science. And there is an empiricism to Buddhism which makes legitimate the statement that you hear on the lips of many Buddhists that Buddhism is not even a religion. It's a philosophy. It's a mode it's an introspective methodology.
That's why I can't claim myself I can't agree to the claims by atheists that I'm one of that community. I don't have the time, energy, interest of conducting myself that way. I'm perfectly happy going to see the rock opera Jesus Christ Superstar. I have Handel's Messiah on my iPhone, along with Bach's B minor Mass. That's some of my favorite bits of music. This is what I do, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm perfectly fine with having religious people who live all around me. I'm not trying to convert people. I don't care. We're in a religiously pluralistic society. Most of what accounts for the immigration waves into this nation were people fleeing religious persecution in their hometown. And no one will deny the richness of this country as a product of the immigration that unfolded. I'm okay with that. Just keep it out of the science classroom. That's my little dog. Maybe it's a poodle, I don't know, but it's a... So you asked me if I'm agnostic. I'm agnostic. And it's more that I don't really care. I don't want to have to spend all this energy, but I keep getting called out into the boxing ring, largely against my wishes.
The KKK, how its stature got so eroded in this country, but there's this great little story about this guy Stetson Kennedy who leaked. He joined the KKK, and then he leaked all their goofy lingo and secret passwords to the people who were writing the Adventures of Superman radio series back in the 40s. And so every week, it was Superman fighting the KKK with all the up-to-the-minute passwords and handshakes and, you know, bogus, cultish nonsense. And so these grand wizards would come home and they would see their kids playing the KKK versus Superman on the front lawn, and with Superman winning and all the current passwords. And they found this so humiliating, and this was so corrosive. And Stetson Kennedy was still, you know, inside the Klan. He would see the aftermath of these effects at meetings. And you know, I'm sure there were other variables involved, but the KKK is functionally a defunct organization, whereas it had 20 million members, among whom were senators and even one president. It's possible to make progress.
Religion and science can coexist in the same person, that's true. Now, I know Francis Collins. He's brilliant on the genome, but if you've read C.S. Lewis, you don't need to read him on religion. It's unbelievably naive. Sir Isaac Newton was an alchemist, a very strong, if rather superstitious Christian. He thought the Pope was the Antichrist, might have been onto something there. But a very weird, full of very weird beliefs. I thought if you knew the measurements of the old temple, you'd know more than if you understood gravity. Alfred Russel Wallace, who did most of Darwin's work for him, was a spiritualist, would go to table rapping sessions, listening to burblings from the beyond. Joseph Priestley was a Unitarian and believed in the phlogiston theory.
Shouldn't that be a late?
It's really only until, I would say it's only until Albert Einstein, not until, I mean, Albert Einstein, that you get a scientist who's also essentially a philosopher of pure mind. That's the great breakthrough. And now you can have private beliefs and be a scientific person, but no one says my science helps to vindicate my religion. No one says that anymore. That's not doable.